I used to get really nervous about speaking to large groups. For the last 2 hours, my focus has been on making this step. Young people don't think about this. An hour and a half ago, I thought, procedurally, how can I get up here from the ground? I thought about the one step, push off the back leg, straighten my back, chest out, and I think I can make it. 30 minutes ago, I thought, I'm gonna take an outside hitter volleyball approach to this. I'm gonna take a 3-step drop, one, together, swing arms, landed up here. 10 minutes, I decided, I better not do that. So things have changed. I get older, and I have to think about different questions. Talofa. Talofa. One more time. Talofa. This is a formal greeting in my native tongue of Samoa. My name is Jeff Utu. I pastor a church in Bend, Oregon called Water Church. I have been commissioned this morning to preach on one verse, Ephesians 4:4. There is one body and one spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called. When my soup first called me and said, hey, I want you to preach at this thing, I said, no problem. I'd love to do that. And then I found out that the talks are fashioned after TED Talks. Now, I've heard of TED Talks, but I've never watched a TED Talk. Upon careful investigation, I found out that TED Talks last 10 to 12 minutes. Well, guess what? Island folks are just like Hispanic folks. We've never preached 10 to 12 minutes in our life. Okay? We've never done that. See, here's the deal. You can give me one Bible verse, I'll give you an hour-long sermon. I can freestyle for an hour. Just give it to me. But 10 to 12 minutes, that's difficult. That's very challenging. So when my soup asked me to do this, this challenge came up right away. I was like, wow, man, I don't know if I can do it. I had to study for this one. You got to really study for 10 to 12 minute sermon. So like any good college student facing a final exam, this morning I got up and studied. All right? I got up early. And I said, okay, God, let's see what you have for us. The second challenge was this. I was going to be speaking to people who had done this for a long time. I was going to be preaching to new ordained pastors fresh from last night. I was going to be preaching to pastors who have done this for longer than I have. I was going to be preaching. There are professors who have been teaching at a collegiate level for years. This is the audience that I was going to address this morning. And I thought, whoa, what can I do? What would I be able to say? How can I make a point that is so savvy that it would be kind of entertaining? And that maybe my peers could walk out of here with brand new conviction and say, man, I want to keep on fighting the good fight. How am I going to preach that? Oh, well, I figured this out. I can't do that. Sorry, Rob. I'm not sure if I'm the guy.
You got 10 more minutes.
Yes, sir. Here's what I can do, though. Here's what I can do. I can give you a little bit of perspective by way of my own story on the importance of why the church should be one body, led by one spirit, just as we're called to one hope. And it's simply this. This is the perspective I can give you. People are still going to hell. Okay? People are still going to hell. People are still living in hellish conditions right now. And we, as ministers of the good word, can help change the spiritual trajectory for the lost. Okay? Here's what I can do. In the Samoan culture, divorce is very uncommon. Okay? But my family was different. My folks split when I was really young. My father announced to our family that he was leaving us, and he left us for another woman, and that is what it is. As uncommon as divorce is in the Samoan culture, when there's a split, all the kids go with the mom. And so mom picked up 7 kids. We left Hawaii, and we flew to Carson, California. It's in Southern California. Once my mom figured out the welfare system and maybe got herself on her feet a little bit, we moved from Carson, California to Compton, California. Compton, California is a nice little suburban area in Los Angeles. Maybe you've heard of it. It's made the news recently. I grew up in Compton when the crack pandemic hit the ghettos of America. America has never seen something like crack hit the streets. We had never seen so much money poured into the ghetto by way of drug sales. And because of drug sales, because of the push of money and the drug trade, there had to be some kind of group that stood up and said, "We're the guard." Those became the gangs. And the insidious nature of violence started to cover up in the ghetto the true need for community, the true need for pride. And violence followed this. And here's the deal. Overnight, gangs they got this terrible rap, and some of it was necessary. But you heard it all over the news. There was a drive-by. There was a shooting here. There were gangs that fought in the mall here. There were gangs here and gangs there and gangs here and gangs there. Let me tell you something. The Little Rascals was a gang. You remember Buckwheat and them? Okay, now here's the deal. Gangs were created for kids who had terrible family structure at home, and they needed to find community amongst friends, and that's what it was. And then what happened from that nice little idea, it turned into the guard for drug trade in the ghetto, and it got more and more violent. After getting more and more in trouble, my 2 older brothers started down this road of drugs and gangs, and my mom saw that the baby boy was doing the same thing. So once I'm in and out of jail, I get out of jail, and my mom ships me off to Long Beach to live with Uncle Dave. Uncle Dave stood 6'5", tipped the scales at over 500 pounds, a mountain of a man. Now, in the ghetto, when you get out of jail, there isn't a sense of shame that follows you around. You actually have hero status. When you get out of jail in the ghetto, people are like, "Oh, hey, man, woo, when you get out, boy." And there's a little bit of a sense of like, I look up to you. Well, guess what? I couldn't cash in on that status at Uncle Dave's house. You know what I'm saying? I mean, how gangster can you be washing dishes? How G can you be pushing the lawnmower? You know what I'm saying? Because there was no option. I had to do chores. I had to do homework. I learned this at Uncle Dave's house. There was no option, you understand? You had to do what he told you to do because he's huge. He's huge. And so here's another thing that I learned, and please follow me on this. I learned how to talk. I learned the importance of articulation. Obviously back then I wouldn't have been able to say it this way. I learned how to try to make a point. Uncle Dave told me, keep talking. Keep talking, keep going, keep going. Now, this is a way you would speak to a small child. Use your words. Use your words. But here's the truth is, a lot of kids that grow up in the ghetto are very immature. We don't know how to talk. I mean, seriously, how different would things be in the ghetto if you saw two gang members on the news and one saying, hey man, I'd like to apologize for what I did last night. I shouldn't have crossed your name out on the wall when I was spray painting it with my name. Now, here's the deal. I mean, obviously it's illegal, but I mean, you get the moral of the story is that if kids in the ghetto were taught to just talk, I'm telling you, it would change the whole landscape of what happened in the ghetto. I learned how to talk. I learned with my uncle's encouragement, you need to do this. I played football at a high school in Long Beach, and the quarterback walked up to me, Jeremy Jones, and myself were sitting there. He was running back on my team, Black Cat. Quarterback John Fierro comes up to us and he says, hey man, he was excited. He's like, hey, there's a camp happening this weekend. It costs a lot of money, but someone at my church wants to pay for you two guys to go. And I looked at Jeremy, I was like, And John, I told you, John was excited. He said, listen, there's going to be hundreds of kids. There's this place called Hume Lake. You're going to love it, man. You're going to make a lot of new friends. And I looked at Jeremy and I was like, He said, man, there's going to be a good band there. The sound is kicking in the sanctuary. You're going to love it. Jer, please. And I looked at Jer and I was like, bah. It didn't sound attractive. And then John said, you can eat all the food you want to eat. At every meal. At every meal, you can eat all you want to eat. And I said, praise the Lord? I said, John, my friend Jeremy and I have nothing better to do this weekend. We'd love to take you up on this invitation and join you at this Christian camp. And we'd be happy to sit through any kind of sales pitch that you have about your Lord. That's not what I said, but I wish I would have said it. I said yes to this camp because we didn't have much to eat at home growing up. Now, I don't know if this is a provocative thought for you, but I said yes to the food, and the food led me to Jesus. All right? Now, I want you to hear the deeper statement there, because although food was going to meet the immediate need of the day, there was a hunger in my soul. And it was crying out to take up this invitation. When we got off the bus, Jeremy and I, for real, we looked like idiots. We're standing there in everything gangster that we could gather up. We got on Timberlands. We got on pants double the size of our waist. We got on bomber jackets, beanies, standing there with sleeping bags in the snow. Right? A girl walks up to us. Yeah. That's not why we accepted the invitation, sir. A girl walks up to us, and she addresses us with some astonishing words. Get ready for this. Hey, guys. What's your names? Did you just get off of that bus? What church are you here with? Are there kids in America that have never been welcomed this way? Oh, yeah. For sure, there were 2 that day, and there are many more today, I guarantee it. We had no idea how to respond. I didn't know what to say. I seriously, I was dumbfounded. I could not respond. I had seen these kind of conversations occur on the Brady Bunch, but I'd never experienced it myself. So I didn't say anything. I walked right past her. I wanted to find out where the cafeteria was and just go there and be present in the presence of all you can eat food. It was pulling us like a radar beam. It was like we were getting pulled to the Death Star. On the way there, we got stopped again. Someone else, a guy. He said, "Hey guys, what's your names? Where are you guys from? Man, so glad to have you here." And then I started to think, wow, maybe they really wanted to know who I was. The invitation from the quarterback was ushered by people who actually wanted to know who we were. And so then what began to awaken in me, I started to realize that I wanted to be known. And so I answered the question. I said, "This is Jeremy. I'm Jeff. Yeah, we just got off the bus." I came to Jesus on the third day of that camp because there were a bunch of church people who were inviting, they were caring, and interested in the lives of two kids who were trying their best to be different. But you know what Jeremy and I figured out? Or at least I can speak for myself. You know what I figured out? I figured out that it didn't matter if I was Polynesian, white, black, Asian. On that trip, we were all kids that were just searching for this man named Jesus. And I figured out that I was in the same soup line as any of these kids ready for Jesus. The church that I encountered at Hume Lake was a church of one body, led by one spirit. We were called to one hope. That was the church that I encountered. And I wanted this. I wanted it. You guys, the lost is not going to attract to an organization that is divided and bickering about race and politics and who's gay and who's not. The lost is not going to attract to a church that claims to love people just because they love them, and in the meanwhile create some kind of caste system that they develop themselves. The lost is not going to attract to that. Ray Stedman, an old preacher from the Bay Area, he said this: "The church is the only club that should exist for the benefit of non-members only." That's pretty good. The church is the only club that should exist for the benefit of non-members. After high school, I went into full-time ministry. 30 plus years later, I am still doing it. If the church can live out these instructions given to us by this apostle, we will become attractive to the lost again. I promise you guys. I promise you guys. We can continue to bring people to the cross, and maybe if they're dumb enough, some of these kids might turn out giving their whole lives to preaching this gospel. Maybe they might end up just like this kid that you see standing before you on this stage. We will do that if we are one body, led by one spirit, just as we were called to one hope.